On a previous show, we introduced you to one of the finest local businesses in any category in our community. Family owned and operated for over 25 years, please welcome back to our show Mr. Hubcap Wheel Tire Center. Now, if you've resided in Reno for a number of years, you may have known this business for its ability to replace and match hubcaps for just about every vehicle on the road. Well, this is still a part of their business. Many of you may not know that they now offer new and used wheels and new tires. Well, their prices can be significantly lower than their competitors. Their service rises above the rest. Last week, I experienced this firsthand when I replaced a set of tires on one of my vehicles. I had an appointment. They preferred that. When I arrived, my tires were there. They immediately checked me in, went right to work on replacing all 4 tires, and I was driving out in approximately 30 minutes. I might mention my lug nuts were hand-torqued, my wheels were properly balanced and vibration-free at speed. I had to have them back on our show to give you the opportunity to get to know them better. And with us representing Mr. Hubcap Wheel and Tire Center is Bob Marsh. Bob, it's a pleasure having you on our show today.
Thank you. Good morning.
When I was in your shop last week, we had started to talk about the recent hint of winter, and we've been talking a lot about this on our recent shows. I really wanted to spend some time talking with you about the differences in tires. They're winter, all season, studded, siped, and I really want our listeners to understand the differences. I found the area that causes consumer the greatest confusion in regards to tires is the difference between all season and winter compound tires. Let's take a minute and begin with distinguishing the two.
Well, a winter compound tire is actually designed for 45 degrees and below, and are multi-directional 3D siped across the tires. They have multiple biting edges compared to an all-season. An all-season is more designed for all-around driving compared to a winter tire. A winter tire is going to be the most aggressive for the snow in the winter season.
Well, you had mentioned the number of sipes on the tires, so share that with our listeners, if you will.
Say if you have a set of 4 of an all-season, you're going to have maybe 1,000 biting edges. You get a snow winter tire, you're going to have around 5,000. So entitled, you're going to have a lot more traction on those roads.
Well, let's talk about the differences in just the compounds used in these tires and whether they're stickier or they harden up and become less, I guess, malleable is the term you used, and the differences there. Go ahead and expand on that.
Well, an all-season tire is actually a much harder compound. It's designed for a higher mileage all-around driving. Now, winter tire is actually designed for, like I said, 45 degrees and below. They stay malleable even in negative temperatures where they can actually grab the grooves of the road opposed to sliding on top of them like an all-season would. An all-season gets very hard. You wouldn't even imagine it unless you've seen it yourself.
Well, and we were talking about that, and I don't know that people really get this, but the colder weather can actually create the tires can become denser and harder and become almost ceramic-like, and you wind up losing traction if you don't have the right compound rubber on the road.
Exactly.
You and I both know having the right tire on your car is not just important for you and your life, but the life of other people around you that depends on it as well. And I've witnessed in my career the misconception that having a set of winter tires can cost a lot more. Well, you may have an immediate expense of an extra set of tires, but 2 tires, they last twice as long, 2 sets of tires. If you use your winter tires in the winter, your summer tires in the summer, their life expectancy is greater as well because they're operating. And we talked about that if you'd spend a little time on that.
Yeah. Well, see, if you have a summer all season, it's going to be designed for those hotter temperatures. They're going to be designed for high mileage, hydroplaning resistance for like rain, wet roads. Now, winter tire is actually designed for the snow. It's designed for those icy conditions. So it's optimal for the wear that you're going to get for them.
So having 2 sets of tires, it's not like just 2 sets of tires twice as long. You may actually get a little bit more life out of each because they're operating in the conditions they were designed for.
Oh, absolutely.
So in the long run, there can be very little, if any, actual cost difference between having both.
You might even save more money. I mean, you could end up getting double the wear off your tires because you're using them for the conditions that they were provided for.
Do you find people still have a hard time wrapping their brain around that?
Very much so. I mean, a lot of people don't want to buy 2 sets. They can't afford 2 sets. But in reality, you'll save yourself money in the long run.
So even after you share that with them, they still think it costs more.
Oh, yeah.
There's just a confusion about as much confusion about the differences in all season and winter compound tires that it seems that this time of year, without fail, the question arises, should I go with winter compound or studded tires? Tell us a little bit more about the benefits of each of those.
Well, a winter compound tire is going to be more geared towards less snowy and icy roads. When you live in Nevada, you'd notice that there's not too many days of the year that there's constant snow. A studded snow tire is going to be more geared towards people that live in Tahoe and that are going to be in those conditions of ice on a daily basis.
Well, we had talked about it's not necessarily only Tahoe. There are some folks that live out here in our rural communities, or even in some of the local communities where the roads are left maybe plowed, but not even completely. There's just a sheet left there, and they almost leave that there intentionally when they plow, not to damage the roads with the snowplow equipment.
Exactly.
And so those people maybe have an advantage of using a studded
compound.
And so we had talked about the studded, and there were some downsides to it too. You know, this time of the year, you drive around town and you start to hear, I guess there's a seasonal legal time period where you can operate studded tires. What is that, by the way?
October 1st until April 30th is actually the dates.
And you'll hear it. You'll hear the grinding and grappling of these the tires, studded tires, scratching against the pavement. But that's not necessarily on regular pavement, providing them additional traction. It can actually reduce what you were talking about. Describe how that occurs.
Well, exactly. A studded snow tire is designed to dig into the ice and into the snow. When you get on a dry road, it's actually going to make the tire kind of lift it above the pavement. It produces less traction in reality on a dry road, so you won't get the performance you're desiring out of it.
And what happens if you lock the brakes up and the tips of these studs at the contact you have with the ground is they can start to
just
slide right across the pavement, and it's not like they're gripping into asphalt like they would grip into ice.
Exactly.
Do you experience over and over again, people putting off purchasing or installing their winter tires until the snow's sticking on the ground, and then let's not forget the mad rush?
Oh, you betcha. I mean, as soon as that first snow hits the valley floor, I get a rush for about a week and a half straight. I mean, we're slammed. And what I find interesting is people think that winter tires are always available. When they find out the local supply and their size has disappeared, do they seem to get upset at you as if it's your fault that you don't have their tire? Oh, you betcha. People are quite upset when they don't have the right tire for their vehicle.
If you can get them after the supply locally runs out, and there's a couple of warehouses that you have to choose from, and they try to stock them up, but it's just like winter and summer clothes. They try to also run out of them at the end of the season.
Exactly.
So
they don't want to overstock.
Then they'll try to stock just the right amount, but then certain sizes do start to disappear, and then it always seems like it's the one that you need for your car. But if you can still find them in another state, there's some extra cost for trying to get them here and shipping them. That can be pretty expensive, can it?
Oh, yes, indeed.
This is the reason why we asked him to be back on our show. The supply of winter compound tires is finite. It's not endless. And I'd like to take a minute, because we have a little bit more time here, and have you talk a little bit about your facilities. And, I mentioned that when I had these tires put on, and I could say over the 3 decades in the automotive industry, I've seen thousands of tires being mounted and balanced and installed. And it seems more commonplace than not that the customer leaves with a little shimmy and they're bringing it back to get the tires rebalanced. And I had commented, this was really impressive to me, and that I went out, I drove my car, and at varying speeds, so you don't get that, 65 mile an hour to 70, a vibration and wiggle of your steering wheel and the shuttering. I just experienced the best balancing I think I've ever had. I left, and the first thing I did, because that's my knowledge and education about the process, is went out and tried it at varying speeds to see if you had balanced them right. And there's a lot that goes into that, and it's not an accident. You were sharing that with me. So elaborate a little bit on the hand torquing and the benefits of it, and why you still choose to do that, and your balancing process.
Well, we like to get things right the first time. We don't want to have you coming back immediately after we put your set on. We hand torque just so that way you make sure that all your stuff is up to spec. You're not going to lose a wheel, and you're not going to end up warping that alloy wheel, because if you over torque, you can actually warp your alloy wheel.
So these power wrenches, the zip, zip, zip wrenches, can sometimes not torque all of them evenly.
Exactly.
So the idea of doing it the old-fashioned way with a handheld torque wrench, and knowing
it's right,
that they're all exact and it's all right, and that you're not trusting the compressor to put enough energy behind you. I think that's the lazy man's way, and the way you're doing it is really a lot more effort.
Yes, sir.
More work, but a better overall consistent project for you. And then you also have some, better equipment when it comes to, and one of the things I looked for as well, and I wanted to share this with our listeners, is I looked at the wheels to see how, if there was any remnants of your installing the tires. And I mean, they were scuffed free, and they were installed without damaging even the outer edges of my alloys. And it really showed that there was something to do with the equipment. And tell me a little bit about the equipment, because I understand there's some pretty expensive equipment involved there.
Well, yeah, we do have all John Beam high-end equipment, just top-notch stuff. Our balancers are up to date, brand new. They're not old, junky stuff. We actually, everything we use is up to par. It's all calibrated correctly. I mean, it's...
I mentioned that you not only accept appointments, but it seemed to me, I was told that you prefer them. Is that true?
Well, yeah, because we don't want to have our customers waiting for 3 hours. We'd prefer to get you in and get you out in 30 to 45 minutes. We don't want you to be waiting for 3 hours like you do at some other companies.
Well, and that's the ordinary. Right. What you offer is the extraordinary, and I really want to share that with our listeners. It's the reason why we asked you to come back on our show. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the supply of winter tires is finite. It's not endless. If you want to get them in your size and avoid additional shipping costs, see Bob, Mitch, or Devin at Mr. Hubcap Wheel and Tire Center now, immediately. Pick up your phone, call 356-5555. Again, that's 356-5555. And please tell them that you heard about them on the radio on the CarBuyer Advisor. Bob Marsh, Mr. Hubcap Wheel and Tire Center, thank you so much for coming on our show today.
Thank you very much.